Thank you, Dad. When we say we're holding a fiyf, again in medieval terms we mean we have a dispensation from, we don't have the freehold, we have the freehold, we don't have the ownership. Do you see how it's right in our culture, this Scythians, steppes of Central Asia, nomadic warrior bands that go, wow, pillaging and stealing, and become Vikings in, northeast, and goodness knows what, as they move to Eastern Asia where they attack China and so on. It's this band of free men that have a place in this band and an allegiance, an incredible loyalty to the leader. So this Persian, what we call Persian, but it's really, as I say, it's those tribes like the Scythians, and they're all much the same, of Eastern Persia, if you like, Eastern, beyond Mesopotamia. And even the Parsis, is it? No, not the Parsis. The Medes are more like separate tribes, not a nation, not a group. Well, you can identify them by certain characteristics, but then their main characteristic is that they're sort of nomadic and wanderers, and it's not a unified nation at all. It's the understanding now that there was never a Median empire before the Persian one. It was simply that lot out there that live the way they live, and now and again encroach upon Persians proper, so to speak, in the river, following the rivers, what we do think of as Mesopotamia, Tigris and Euphrates and so on. But there are much more as or like the Scythians, the nomadic peoples. I mean, vast in numbers and territory and distance, but what become perhaps, what do become unquestionably what we mean by Germanic and Norse and Viking and, Saxons, Danes, Normans, Norsemen, that sort of thing from our myopic Western Europe point of view. But we go back to the ancient Persia, Mesopotamia and so on. Our culture is Aryan in this sense. Persia was itself greatly affected by these peoples that you couldn't really say were part of the Persian Empire by any means. They were coping with them, and they certainly used them as their bodyguards and as their military, because they were fantastically loyal fighters. And but for the military control and training, well, they were ruthless invaders of anywhere, including you. The terror of the civilized Mediterranean world, as the Mediterranean people would see it. Not that they were that civilized, but they were in the sense of organized and national, as opposed to tribal. But do you see how indigenous people, in this case we're thinking of those indigenous peoples of the steppes of Central Asia, have a natural inclination or purity of, in this case, allegiance, loyalty, which of course we've tried to use as patriotism to cement societies into a unified whole, haven't we? These primeval, you could say, inclinations, which are in family structure, aren't they? You're loyal to your family. And that's what the tribal society is more like. Whānau, if you're talking about New Zealand Maori, historically speaking, culture, and the incredible blessing of this, because it gives unified benefits. The benefits from a unity of a group of people that work as one. Fearfully effective. Wonderfully effective. And it's right behind our view of what the divine, the heavenly could, in some pure form, be a beautiful, wonderful family in loyalty and love. Not what the world has made of it, a fearful, frightening, pillaging group that robs and feeds off everything around it that it can get hold of. Which is what the nation can turn into. For the benefit of that nation, building an empire, or for the benefit of its elite, subjecting its own people. So you have some terribly rich and powerful, but the population basically dreadfully inferior. Poor souls. But it's all to teach us, and we thank God for it, mechanically, until we feel it in our being. This trust in the goodness of God, in His love and blessing, and what He's doing for us here in His wonderful, magnificent creation, and in that sense how right He is to look upon it all and say, it is all good. Not easy for the children to embrace that statement. But can you aspire to trusting it to be the case? And if you do take it as your trust, do you see the miracles start to flow? Do you start to see the goodness of God in your life? If you do, you'll carry on running with it. And I think for all eternity. But I don't know. I just trust it to be so. Thank you, Heavenly.